Hi, everybody. Erica here from In the Company of Cards. As you see, I have no guest today, so this is just a Sunday conversation with me and you. Uh, it will be brief because it's a beautiful Sunday here in Southern California. Of course, it usually is a beautiful day here in Southern California, and I want to get out and about for my day, but I did want to come on and acknowledge the events of yesterday or the non-events if you took my advice as Black people and stayed home and drank your water and minded your business. That's what I did. Um, but the turnout was amazing. And so first I want to tell a little story, a quick story, like an anecdote. And then I want to look at the effect of yesterday, short term, and then also long term moving forward. So, when I was a little girl, and some of you know, I went to this very fancy girls' school, in New York City, which I desegregated when I was small. I was 9 years old when I desegregated it, and yeah, it was quite a ride. But anyway, at one point, my class was doing an assembly, performing at an assembly. And so my father came to watch. Remember, my father was white. He was a minister. He was a civil rights activist, um, known to Dr. King. Uh, and so he had a certain, worldview about things. So we sang this song. Now, I am not about to sing because my speaking voice is even odder than my singing voice is even odder than my speaking voice, but I will recite the lyrics of the song that we sang at this assembly. So the verse went, freedom is a word often heard today, but if you want to keep it, there's a price to pay. Each generation must win it anew because it's not just something handed down to you. And then the refrain was, freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free. You have to pay a price. You have to sacrifice for your liberty. Okay, so we have the assembly. And then afterwards, I said to my father, so what did you think? Did you like our song? And he goes, no. And he said, I don't like that message. Um, freedom is free, and we shouldn't have to, in every moment, safeguard it. We do, but we shouldn't have to. And that stuck with me to the extent that I remembered the verse all these years later. And I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10, when we had that assembly. So I say that to remind those of you who don't know, my dad was wrong. The lyric was correct. My father was uh, a wonderful man, an altruistic man, and an idealistic man. And he wanted the world to be a certain way. And he worked hard for it to be a certain way. And I guess he was one of those people that says, if you just tell yourself that something is a certain way, it will become that. And I mean, I do think that that's true. I think we can will things into existence. But will requires more than thought. It requires action. And I tell that story and I say all this to say that there will occasionally be people who come into my comments and will ask me to ask my cards, when will this be over? And it makes me think of that song. Your life's work, my life's work, must be about making sure that we have freedom and liberty in this country, that diversity and equity and inclusion are part of what it means to be a free people. So if you thought, for example, that you would pull that lever for Kamala Harris and that all your girlfriends did the same thing, and that you don't get it, like, why didn't it take? Like, how come she didn't get elected? We know that there are many reasons for that, and I'm not going to elaborate on those here because we all know. Um, but just like pulling that lever, this and thinking that that was going to be a one and done, and that didn't work out. Just like coming out yesterday in protest against everything, that cannot be a one and done either. What I'm hoping is that this will have lit the match that starts the fire. And the fire should be, however I do it, this has got to be my life's work. Not just my life's work, it's already my life's work and every other Black and brown person's work. I'm saying it's got to be everybody's life's work. That we wake up, that we are woke, that we stay woke, that we embrace the words diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we fight whatever would make those words into curse words, pejoratives. So, if you were out and about yesterday doing the protest thing, thank you on behalf of everyone in the world. And know that that's just the beginning. I hope it was a taste, or a new taste for those of you who've done it before, that reactivates that part of your brain that says, this has got to be my life's work. So I think I'm going to, because it's Sunday, I'm going to let Spirit tell us, give us all the cards. And I want to look first at what are the short-term effects of yesterday. What will the short-term effects be? Okay. Short-term effects of yesterday's mass demonstration. Okay, these are good. We have the bear, we have the stork. In the center, maybe my favorite card, the key, the bouquet, and the mountain. I love that Spirit pays attention when I'm talking to you. Sometimes you'll see it in orbs that fly around me, which first time it happened, I was like, whoa, what's that? But I mean, I'm often accompanied by orbs. It's just Spirit letting me know they're here. They're giving me my words. I think that's what I want to say. They're helping me interpret the cards for you. So the bear. The bear continues to be Trump and Project 2025 and everyone that would want freedom to not be free, would want freedom not to belong to certain people, women, gay people, Black and brown people. And they will do all they can to put up obstacles to our having freedom and diversity and equity and inclusion. These are the cards that flank the line. This is important to remember as you come down from the high of the weekend, whether your high was from demonstrating and seeing everybody out there and being out there in that energy, or whether your high was from putting up your feet and drinking your water or your Bloody Mary or your mimosa or your tea, whatever you drank as you were resting, whatever you were doing yesterday that gave you a high, understand that this is not the end. There will still be opposition from those in power. However, the second card is the stork. It will get better from here. It will get better from here. The stork is the card for positive change. The center card, I'm so excited to see it. It's the key. We have unlocked the door that was keeping us from understanding how do we come out of this nightmare? How do we make this nightmare end? And it is through the kinds of things that happened yesterday. It's through banding together. Let me tell you something. Education. One of the things that 47 people, this is Project 2025. This is not Trump because he's, you know, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Entertainment purposes only, YouTube. But one of the very smart things that they've done in terms of education is picked off schools one by one, right? So they say, Columbia, we're going to do this to you. UPenn, we're going to do this to you. Princeton, we're going to do this to you. And so each school has had to scramble to decide, are they going to bend the knee or are they going to resist? Now, had they said instead, Ivy League, you 7 schools of the Ivy League, I think it's, I don't know, 7, something like that. This is what we're going to do to you. I guarantee you that the Ivy League would have had a unified response to push back. But that's not what happened. Individually, schools are being singled out for punishment, which means that all the rest of them are sitting back and watching what's happened instead of saying, excuse me, you can't do that. We're in the Ivy League together. You can't attack my friend. And any what is it? Friend of my whatever, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah, enemy of my enemy is my friend. You can't do that. But they don't, this is not what the schools are doing. They're rolling over. Why? Because the undergirding of everything in this country is money. They'll have great rationales for why they bend the knee. Like, we don't want to lose our research grants. These research grants save lives. Legitimate. But Trump's people know that. Project 2025 people know that. They know what ammunition to use. And so these schools are bending the knee instead of banding together. But yesterday, people power was in force. Even the understudies came out yesterday. If you read my Substack, you know what I mean by that. So we have discovered what our sword and shield needs to be against this onslaught. And it is sort of communal effort in communities and in large groups en masse. We have to just tsunami whatever they come at us with. So that's great. And discovering that was a gift we gave ourselves. I can mirror these 2 cards together. Things will get better because we gave ourselves the gift of seeing what's possible. And by the way, I think it was as much a gift that so few Black people came out as it was a gift that so many white people did. Everybody understood the assignment. So short term, we will be on this high, but vigilant, because this is just the beginning. This is just the opening salvo of our fight back. Okay, I'm going to put these cards back in the deck, and then I'm going to look at the long term, because this is the thing. When people ask me, oh, how long is this going to last? I mean, and I laugh and I smile because I'm sure, for example, my slave ancestors would love to have known, how long is this going to last? How long, Lord? How, Lord? How long? My parents were slaves. I'm a slave. My children are. How long? And I will use as a refrain here. You've seen me do it often. I will say, when you have nothing else to be glad about, nothing that makes you happy, nothing that gives you hope, think about the spiritual, where the refrain is, I'm so glad. And you're saying to yourself, so glad about what? I have nothing to be glad about. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. We may see trouble all the rest of our lives, but maybe our children won't. Maybe our children's children won't. Trouble don't last always. We are not promised the win, but we are promised the war. And yesterday the troops showed up. So that's great. So now let's look at the long-term ramifications of yesterday, um, and see if they're looking appreciably different from the short term, because the short term looks great. Um, Again, we have to be vigilant. We had that bear, which is 47 in Project 2025, and we had that mountain, and they flanked the good cards. So again, this is just the beginning of the end. We are past the end of the beginning, thank you, God, but we are now at the beginning of the end. But there's a long way to go. So let's look at the long term, and then I will let you get about your Sunday, and I will get about mine. Okay. So again, Spirit will pick all the cards. Interesting. It's long term. We have birds. We have the lily. We have the coffin in the center. We have the star. And we have the snake. I may draw a clarifier on that snake, but maybe not. Oh, I might. Um, let's see. I think I will, because I have a theory, but that's just my theory. I'll pull three. All right. So the long term, what are the long-term consequences of yesterday? The long-term effect of yesterday? Well, sorry, birds is about people talking and gathering and planning. This is the card for example, meetings. So I think that there will be little pop-up cells of people saying to themselves, okay, what's next? What are we going to do next as we look to the future? Because, you know, nobody's going to just roll over and give people freedom. That's not how it works. So trouble won't last always, but always is a ways away. Okay. Second card is Lily. I do think that what we want to have is a peaceful society that values people. This will require some maturing on our part. This is the card for maturity as much as it is for peace. This is a goal. This is what we would like to transform our country into, so that the underpinning is not money, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. Long term, nothing but major transformation on all fronts is called for. Again, let's look at education. Maybe the way we do higher education is not great, because is it about diversity and equity and inclusion? Higher ed is expensive and elitist. Everything will shift. including the way we choose to do education. You know, he wants to Project 2025, and he wanted to erase us from history and erase us from textbooks. Well, maybe we start our own schools and write our own curricula. Maybe we hire people to watch our children while we're at work, and the children watch a teacher like me online. And I engage with them and give them assignments, and they're monitored by whoever you've hired to watch your kids. I don't know, but homeschooling could very well be growing. You know, it's not just the Christo nationalists that can do homeschooling. There's a big Black home education movement. So the way we do education is going to change. Everything will change. This is total transformation. And remember what this card is. It's a coffin. Nobody likes a coffin. I'm just saying. But why is it a coffin? Why is this the card of transformation? Because in order for something to become something else, it has to first cease being the thing that it was. So there will need to be this kind of large scale upending of everything in order for us to build a new world. So I love that this is here because this is going to take time. The fourth card is the star. Star is about the future. I can mirror this card with the second card. In the future, this is what we will be working towards. And yesterday will have been a galvanizing point towards that end, right? A future where we are peaceful, where we are mature, where we understand diversity and equity and inclusion need to be the things that underpin our society and not money. But we have a snake at the end. And the snake is mirrored with the birds. You know, we are at bottom primates. There's a book, I've mentioned it before, called Sapiens, Sapiens. Really disturbing book. And my brother, whom I had on a Sunday conversation, so go back and look for that. It was his birthday yesterday, so I called him and we were talking, and I mentioned that book, and he kind of, you know, over the phone, it was a phone conversation. He kind of, I could hear his lip curl. He was kind of sneering. And I said, well, you know, why are you doing that? And he said, because this book makes the argument that we are primates. And because we're primates, we are ultimately self-interested, selfish, that civilizations have risen and civilizations have fallen because we are bent on destroying each other for primacy. He said, what I didn't like is the fact that this author did not talk about the other side of being a primate, which is that primates live in families. They foster community spirit. They share. They nurture their young. They love. Are there psychopaths among them? Yeah, there are. Just like we have psychopaths in the human population, the gorilla population has psychopaths too. This book will argue that we are just the same as gorillas, but all gorillas are not psychopaths. Uh, we talked yesterday, my brother and I, about traffic, because I wrote about in my most recent Substack. So go to Substack and subscribe; it's free. I wrote about the balletic nature of traffic. What a miracle it is that traffic flows in this balletic way. I mean, it's a miracle that there is not death and destruction in every minute at every rush hour. But it's because we have a hive mind. And the hive mind of the primate wants to live in harmony and in flow. So, you know, there are the psychopaths among us, but they are not the sum total of who we are. Beyond that, I want to remind you about this snake, something about this snake. Traditionally in Lenormand, the snake is a problem. That's true. However, my snake slithers through mugwort. This is what I always say when I describe it. And why is that? Because I wanted to remind people that one of the traditional meanings of the snake, I didn't make this up. One of the traditional meanings of the snake is a clever woman. So I have the snake slithering through mugwort because mugwort is a feminine plant. It is a plant used in divination, which is the work that I do, for example, and healing, which I hope also is the work that I do here. So it is the woman in her highest state, her, you could argue, most dangerous state. And why most dangerous? Because women give life. Women support life. I saw this very cool thing. It was on Black Instagram. And so there was a meme, and the line was something like, what would you do if there were no men? I mean, how would you survive if there were no men? And then the person said, well, I wouldn't need to lock my doors. I wouldn't need a ring light. Why are we sold all these products to protect us women? Protect us from what? Men. So how would the world be if women had more aegis and authority? It wouldn't be a top-down hierarchy. I know that's for sure. Problems would not be solved by guns. I know that for sure, because we talk. So I love the fact that the line for the long-term outcome of yesterday is that groups of people, clever women particularly, and those who love and respect them, will be talking to each other. We'll be coming up with action plans that are novel and fresh and generative and life affirming. I love that because that's the thing that will give us maturity and calm and patience and all of the beautiful things that the lily can bring into our future, and they will be transformative. So I drew some cards on this snake. We have the garden and we have the ring, and I pulled another card. Hold on. I'll give you that in a minute. The garden is the card for the event yesterday, the series of events, because garden is the gatherings of people, and that they need to continue. This cannot be a one and done. Just like you can't have just pulled the lever one time and then say, well, Kamala didn't win, so I'm never going to vote again. I did do that one time, but it wasn't with voting. My husband, this is years and years ago, for my birthday, said, have you ever been to Atlantic City? And I said, no. He said, well, have you ever played the slots or anything? I'm like, no. He said, well, we're going to do that. So we went to Atlantic City, gave me a bunch of money, coins, and I put them in the machine, and I didn't win. And I was like, wait, did they not get the memo that it's my birthday? Shouldn't the machines be raining out money? And I never hit those machines again. I said, let's go home because what? I'm just putting money in, nothing's coming out, right? I've saved myself a lot of money by not gambling, right? But there are people who thought about the election that way. I'll pull the lever because I pulled the lever and my friends pulled the lever. Of course, we'll get the outcome that we want. That's not how voting always works. So we're going to have to vote and vote and vote again. We're going to have to amass, in these things like we did yesterday or like you all did yesterday, again and again and again and again. And women will lead this charge again and again and again, I'm saying, because that's the ring again and again and again, over and over and over, because like the song said that my father didn't like, if we want to gain and keep freedom, there's a price to pay. Each generation must win it anew because it's not just something handed down to you. So this will be an ongoing struggle, but it doesn't always have to feel like struggle. It can feel like celebration. It can feel, again, generative, life affirming, positive. Isn't it better to be woke than asleep? America will be woke no more, says 47. I think yesterday proved him wrong. So, amen and ashe, and have a wonderful Sunday. And I will see you soon during the week. Take care.